Hello again. This week I've been adding little things to Decked Out, and I thought I would just go around and show you what I've added. So first, I have Blinky's Cozy Corner, which I can show you. It's just in here by the stairs to the library, if you know where that is. You come in here, and Blinky is a nice polar bear back here. He's a good boy. And basically, you give him berries, not this many berries. And then each berry has a chance to give you some stuff, which I really like. I may have made it too generous, but you know, this was never intended for like hermits, you know? And one of the rare things that you can get is this recipe that gets you something later that I'll talk about. As I've been making changes to the dungeon, I've been not too worried about balance because I'm the best player that's going to be running this, and I'm not as good as the hermits, so it's not as competitive, and it doesn't really matter if I do really well anyway. So I just threw a bunch of stuff in. I really like this spot in the dungeon because it's really out of the way. It's kind of hard to get here. There's definitely like ravagers around. And it gives you something to do with a bunch of berries if you've collected them. The next thing I did was I made 4 tokens, which are essentially permanent cards that don't count towards the card limit, because I noticed that there were 4 permanent slots open in the redstone. First off, I have an easy mode token, which you get by picking it up out of that green shulker box over there. And all it does is turn on regeneration for the whole dungeon forever, which basically means that if you get hit once and then get away, you can continue with your run and it'll heal you back to full. But if you get like totally cornered by a Ravager, you still die. So it makes it easier, but it doesn't make it totally trivial for the people who may or may not be video game players that will be doing this. Next is Blinky's Blessing token, which I'm just now realizing is spelled wrong. Oh no. But anyway, I have it giving you fish at the beginning and some hazard block at the beginning. The next is a Death Room token, which you get by getting through the black Death Room with cake and stuff. And it gives you some clank block at the beginning, and it gives you regeneration for a very short time each time you go up or down a staircase, which is cool. And the last one is treasure token, which at this point I'm just like setting its price at 50 crowns, but I don't know, balance is not really a thing here. And it gives you some treasure and some embers right at the beginning of the game. So I downloaded a version of Decked Out from Reddit that somebody has like pruned the rest of the world out of existence so that it runs faster. And they also added the black market, which gives you recipes for new legendary cards that Tango had planned to make but didn't get around to it. And so he's not only created the black market, but he's also created the forge, which is when you win a run. There's a room down there. He set the cost of opening the forge to 40 embers, and I was like, that's a little rich for my taste, and set it to 5. But anyway, once you go in the forge, there are these droppers that you put the ingredients in, and then you hit the button, and then it gives you your card. So I just used this forge room for Blinky's Blessing, and I had to add some redstone behind it, and that's how you get Blinky's Blessing. I've made a bunch of other small changes around the dungeon and like balancing cards and stuff, and not that I think the balance should have been changed for the hermits, but that I and the other people playing this game are worse than the hermits, and so it's nice if it's easy. But I have found that this has been a really, really nice setting to learn how to do redstone in. I've never really done any redstoning before. All I've done is like a very simple door, which is like a pressure plate hooked up to 2 pistons, and call it a day. But I have done, I think, some pretty cool redstone in here. And the combination of a larger system to tap into with like very limited goals to achieve with redstone, and having examples just all over the place for me to look at and draw on and learn from has resulted in like it being really fun to learn redstone through working on this. The rest of this video is going to be me talking about the redstone I made, which is not that exciting, but I'm going to do it. So if you're not interested in that, see ya. But here we go. I think if you know nothing about redstone and you want to hear me babble about being excited about doing redstone for the first time, you should watch like a very basics of redstone video, like just the components, not like how to make circuits. Like what does this thing do? What does a torch do? What does a repeater do? Stuff like that. I will find a video and put it in the description. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go into spectator mode and go down through this floor, and we are going to see an outrageous amount of, first of all, the map, but also redstone just about everywhere. It's a lot. It can be overwhelming, but here are the basics. This grid of rails and stuff is called the bus, and it carries signals around the dungeon. So if you wanted to add clank block or add embers or all that stuff, this is what's carrying that to and from the dungeon. Around here are snaking some of those same colors, and so this is either signals getting pushed to the bus or being taken from the bus and used. So for example, there should be, like, this is the artifact line, so this is an artifact place, and then this is a treasure and ember drop spot, and so it carries those lines to here, so that when treasure is triggered, it drops them. Next, we've kind of got two sections. This is the permanent cards section, because the deck comes in through here, through over here. This is the line. And then they go through here, and any of the permanent cards get taken out immediately and then activated. And then this is the card shuffler. And then down here, these are all the regular cards, all the way down here. And then all of them have their own spaghetti. This is a terrifying amount of redstone spaghetti everywhere, but that's okay. I've mostly been working with the permanents. So the ones that aren't highlighted are the tokens that I've done. So treasure, easy mode, death run, and Blinky's blessing are the 4 that I've implemented because they were already they were open. They just weren't used before, and so that gave me an opportunity to do stuff. I noticed this redstone over here, and this was, he has a filter set up for Dungeon Lackey cards because he, I'm pretty sure, didn't want them to count towards the card limit. And so he had it like scooped up over here, bypass the card thing, and then it rejoins the stream where it gets picked up by the Dungeon Lackey filter here. But I didn't want my tokens picked up by that either. And so I made these little item sorters and had them join this line so that none of my tokens count towards the card limit, which was a cool thing. Okay, a real quick primer on how some of these works is that these are item filters. And so like there's only one, there's not going to be any iron nuggets flowing through the system. Like you're not going to put any of these in your deck. So the only thing that it's going to scoop up is Boots of Swiftness or whatever it is. This comparator is reading that, and as soon as it gets one more item, this redstone line will increase a little bit. It'll activate this dropper here, send this iron nugget into this hopper, and then this hopper is locked. And so until the game turns off, anything that gets spit forward from here continuously activates these comparators, which either power these redstone lines or these pistons. And the pistons have a bunch of honey or slime blocks that push up or down these redstone blocks. And that's kind of how it activates. So like if Silent Runner activates, then this piston will push down one. This block will go from powering this redstone to being down here. And then this will turn off, and then a bunch of stuff happens over here. So that's the basics. And that's what was already here. And then all I did was add some stuff for after these. So let's go trace the easy mode line. So we can find this. Okay, here's the thing. We go down. Okay. So looks like easy mode. Yeah. Okay, so this is easy mode. So it'll drop down. It'll power this redstone line. This redstone line goes over here, up here, and races off. And so basically, this will come up at the end of the game and down at the beginning of the game. And so this will be activated the whole time. This line will be activated the whole time of the game when the easy mode token is in there. So we'll follow this line along. Over here. This is probably not the best way to do this, but this is how I did it. When you put a block next to this wall, the wall will change visibly the whole way. Hold on. I'll show you real quick. So see how flat it is? Here, let me get down past this. See how flat this is? And then if I place a wall up here, now it's bumped out a little bit. And so when this line turns on, piston gets powered and the block goes against it, and that bumps it all the way down. And this observer will detect that, power this. This is basically a toggle switch. Right now the item's in here. When it gets powered, okay. So the observer will detect and send one pulse whenever the wall changes. So at the beginning of the game, the block gets pushed forward, which changes it, which sends one pulse. So that pulse will power these two droppers, which will send the berries into here, which will get detected, and this races off to the regen line. Then, when the game turns off again, that line gets unpowered, that piston gets unpowered, the block gets pulled back, this changes again, sends one more pulse, and that resets it to put the berries here. Yeah. So that's how that works. Potato. Back through the redstone to the permanent zone. Okay. So that was the easiest one, which is appropriate because it is the easy token. Let's do treasure next because it's a pretty clear example. Okay, so all I wanted treasure to do was put some treasure and embers into the dungeon at the very beginning of the game. So I ran the line, and then this was kind of tricky because it didn't have a piston, it just pushed forward like this. And I'm just realizing now that I could have put in a piston, but I didn't think of that. So here we are. These observers will detect the pulse when the game starts and ends. Yes, because this redstone will turn on when the treasure token is detected, and then it'll turn off again when the game turns off. So that will send a pulse through here at the beginning of the end. This is the same setup as before, the same toggle. So the item is in a different place, which is very worrying. I don't know why that's happening. And so we're going to ignore this for now. It sends a pulse, yada, yada, yada. And then these are observers. They detect when the block in front of them changes. But if you put two of them face to face, they'll be like, hey you, hey you, hey you, hey you, back and forth, and we'll send off pulses. And that's the bus apparently can handle that speed of pulses. So this piston will get pushed forward, activating that observer clock for a little bit, and the pulses will run off to the bus. Now, at first, that wasn't working, and I didn't know why. And the reason was the pulses were getting sent out before the game was on. And so the place where this bus ends up can only receive signals once the game has started, once you're in the dungeon. And so basically, after a lot of tracing the redstone, I found out that this purple line tells other things when the game has started. And so that's, if you follow this line, oh, here we are back at the treasure redstone. So this is essentially an AND gate, where this redstone will only turn off when both the game has started and the treasure token has been detected. Because if either one of these torches is on, this redstone gets powered, which races off there. When this is on, this block gets powered, turning off this torch. When the game turns on, this gets powered, turning off this torch. And only when both of those things happen will this redstone turn off. And then it'll send the signal and put the treasure and embers onto the bus. So that's complicated, for sure. But because I had examples all around me, it didn't take that long to make. And like, I've got absolutely no redstone experience. And I made a thing, and it works, and I feel very cool about that. Okay, the next thing is... the next thing is the death run token. So we follow this. Okay, so when it turns on, this redstone block will move forward, which will power this dispenser into here, which this is another, when the game starts, this line turns off. Basically, when the game starts, it'll send off some clank block, but it also has what? Okay, so these rails will get powered, which will send a signal down here, over here, sends the thing over here, through this rail, this observer, to this rail, to this observer. This is another one of those toggles. This is the only toggle I know how to make, you'll notice. But, you know, whatever. And basically, when the card is off, the side of this comparator in subtraction mode is powered. So, redstone is complicated. Okay, comparators have a subtraction mode where basically they'll take the redstone signal from behind them, they'll subtract the redstone signal flowing into the sides, and then output that redstone signal forward. So when the card is off, it puts a full strength redstone signal into the side, which means that no matter how much it gets powered from behind, it won't ever send anything forward. When the card turns on, this toggle flips and this line turns off, and that means that when it gets powered from the back, it will do something. Whew. And then, yeah, I followed this redstone across the universe. It races off for like forever. Basically, whenever you go up or down a staircase, this torch turns off, which goes over here. Here's another torch, so that inverts the signal. So now it's what it'll change, which means that it'll turn on, which powers this, which reconnects to this line, which is the easy mode regeneration line. So basically, this just turns on regeneration. And here's a little clock to make it turn on a little longer. The redstone signal like cycles through this and slowly declines. It's a mystery. This thing took me forever. It took me so long, it's embarrassing. But that's okay. I made it, and it works. And then, so Blinky's Blessing is the last token. Let's find that. Here it is. Here's the piston. What? Okay, so it powers this line, which goes over here, powers this. Okay, so we have two parts here. One is powering this redstone line. This rushes off to This actually took me forever to find because the redstone goes through the ground. Oh, I couldn't find where it went. Okay, but that rushes off to the beginning of the game where you get like your map and your compass and stuff like that. And so it just rushes off to some droppers that give you fish. This other side, so this will drop down and stop powering this. Same kind of thing. It's an and signal. So we need, if the card activates, this redstone is no longer powered by this. And if the game starts, then it's no longer powered by this. This will turn, this redstone line turns on, which turns this off, and that means that this torch will turn on and power this, and it's the same observer clock as before, going to the hazard block line. But yeah, that's all the tokens. But it's been really fun to just go around looking at the redstone, seeing how it works, and learning from it. Like for example, suit up. So suit up gives you armor at the beginning of the game. You can see that this block will drop down here and power both of these lines when the game starts and this gets detected. And so what it does is it gives you armor at the beginning of the game. It gives you a little bit of a beacon effect, but it also gives you a chance for when you generate clank, it generates another clank. And so I just like went down here and followed the lines to figure out, okay, if I don't want it to give me clank anymore, how do I make it do that? So followed this line. This runs off to the beacons. So that gives you resistance. Go team. This line runs off over here, down there. Oh, do we recognize this? This is to the beginning of the game section where the fish activate and all that good stuff. Oh, okay, so we still want the armor. We can leave that on. Oh shoot, I got lost. Here we go. Okay, so that's this line. And then I have removed this dust because it was on before. But you'll kind of notice that this is another and thing. So let me kind of demonstrate. Creative. Okay, so if this is here, when this card gets activated, this torch turns off. When clank is generated, this torch will turn off, which means these turn off, which powers this torch, which powers this. Okay. Get ready for another explanation, because this is kind of complicated. When this dropper gets powered, it'll send one of these 4 items into this hopper, which will immediately send it back into the dropper. But for a quick second, this comparator will read what's in there and put out a redstone signal. Now here's the thing. It's so complicated. Okay. When items are in an inventory that a comparator is reading, the comparator will read signal strength based on number of full stacks of items. So you'll notice that granite can stack up to 64, and so this is 1/64th of a stack. But if you get another stone shovel, you can't stack it on top of each other. You'd have to put it somewhere else. So this is a full stack of items. And the rest of these are 1/64th of a stack, which means that we can tell the difference. So we've got a 25% chance of a full stack and 75% chance of 1/64th. And so 1/64th of a stack doesn't generate enough power to reach this piston. And so 3/4 of the time, this doesn't do anything at all. It just goes here, the redstone dies, it resets. But when the shovel gets pushed over, this detects a full stack, which gives you more redstone signal, which reaches this piston, which goes out and generates another clank. Which is cool. Like, sure, that was complicated, but I was able to just look at this, figure out what was going on, and see what's happening. And now I know how to generate like a 25% chance because I've now seen this machine and this setup. And this AND gate. And I know so many things now. Unfortunately, I don't want that to activate because I suck at this game enough already. Okay, so there's one more thing I want to show you, which is the redstone beneath Blinky, which is over here. So this is the very first redstone thing I have basically ever made. It's the first thing. So if something's wrong, sue me. But you'll recognize a lot of pieces of what you've seen of Tango's redstone in this. So for example, this is essentially an item sorter, and when the item sorter has more items in it, you'll get more power, which powers this, which pushes that block over. Oh, we just saw that happen. That's how the whole that's how the cards activate, is this same mechanic. So when that happens, here, I'll go into creative mode and demonstrate. So this gets pushed over here. This is an observer, so it'll notice when this block moves, and it'll generate a pulse. And then this is a little circle of repeaters. So repeaters, the redstone signal can only go one way through it. So you can kind of see a little arrow. Anyway, it only goes forward that way. So it'll generate this pulse, and it'll only go around the circle this direction. But there's no redstone here, Alex. You messed up. Aha, I have you. When this block gets pushed over, it can be powered, which can power this. But when the block isn't here, there's nothing here to be powered anymore, and the cycle stops, which is important. So now we've got a little redstone clock that will slowly spit out redstone signals, pulses, until this is pulled back. So basically, each pulse, two things happen. One, if you look over here, this releases one item through the hopper. So each pulse, one item goes away. And when this goes back to, oh, it's supposed to be at 29. When this goes back to 29 items, then, so when you put berries in, it'll go to 30, 31, 32. And when it goes back down to 29, we'll lose the redstone signal, and this will pull back, stopping the cycle. And so you only get as many pulses as the number of berries you put in, which is good. Then each pulse comes over here. And this is a 1/3 chance. That's admittedly overly complicated. This isn't how it needs to be. But it's the same thing. So the pickaxe is a full stack, and then these, only one item is going to get shot over to the hopper. So these will all be 1/64th of a stack when it's going over here. And so it'll only trigger, these things will only activate when we get one of the pickaxes, which is 1 out of 3 times. Then two things will happen. The first thing is the redstone signal goes over here, activates this hopper, and you get a goodie. The other thing that happens is we activate another chance-based system, which is 1 out of 9. So each berry, you get a 1/3 chance over here. Each time you get the 1/3 chance, you get a 1 out of 9 chance. So basically every 27, this line, every 27 berries, this should activate. And it activates this rare stuff dropper. So that's either the recipe to get Blinky's Blessing, Pay to Win, or Tactical Approach, which are one-time use cards. I've put a lot of berries into here. But yeah, so this is like the first redstone I've ever made, and again, I'm sure there's a way better way of doing this, but I'm so proud of myself. This has been really fun, and it's just been really, I don't know, it's just been really fun to get my brain working and learning, and come out of it with something that works. Is really cool. And then I think I only have one more thing to show you, which is adding the redstone to the card forge. So I'll be back. Okay, so first of all, here we are at the forge, and it's like, oh, I mentioned that I changed the cost of the forge. How did I know how to do that? Well, kind of followed the scent. um, so this is a similar system. So when more items get put into here, this comparator will detect it, powering this, which unpowers this torch, which yada 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 unpowers this. And so items flow from here into here. And then when this is empty, this stops outputting a signal. And then that triggers the door to open. So basically, when this is empty, which it'll flow out one item for every item you put into here. So this used to have 40 in it, now it's only got 5. So I don't know, this is what I'm talking about. Like, redstone is complicated for sure. There's a lot going on here, but I feel like I'm able to follow the lines well enough and figure out what's going on. But anyway, so that's how the door opens. Then you go into here. This room is very cool, by the way. Good work to the person who made this. I forget your Reddit name. Sorry. I should probably put a link in the description. But yeah, now, if I wanted to add a recipe to this, I need to know how it works. So let's go through that. First, here are the 4 droppers. They all just add into this water stream and send the items across. And then you can see that these are just the item sorters again. You've got the same setup. You've got the hoppers, you've got comparators being read, and the redstone out the back. And so this is going to be the very same item sorter setup. Each one you go into is going to have a certain item in there that are used for the current recipes. So these are the current recipes that have been set up. And then I added this one at the end. But there's one issue. I wanted berries to be in the recipe. And berries get sucked out of this line here. So I couldn't just make another item sorter for berries down at the end. I had to detect when berries got activated and send the redstone signal down. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how these redstone signals get turned into, oh, if you detect 4 of the right things, it'll activate something. Well, we've talked about this before already, which is, that's just an AND gate. You need this and this and this and this. And so, oh, how did we do that before? Torches. We did it with torches. And so basically, at the very end of this, when an item gets detected in here, it is going to end up turning off one of these torches. And then when all 4 items have been detected, none of these torches are on, which means that this line isn't on, which means this torch turns on, which sends out a signal in a bunch of ways. And the inner workings of it are maybe more complicated than that. And I don't 100% get it, and you don't really need to either. But that's the basics. So yeah, when the item gets detected, the items flow from this hopper to this hopper, which gets read, turns off the torch. When all the torches turn off, that's how you send the signal. So all the signals rush over here, all the way around, which leads to this little section of droppers. So if you go in, oh, here are the legendary cards. Here they are. And then if we follow this all the way around, I mean, I'm not going to because it's such a far distance. But this water stream leads to where you spawn after you die in the dungeon. And that's how you get your card. But again, it was really fun looking at this system, figuring out how it worked, kind of looking through everything, seeing like, oh god, there's command blocks. What do they do? All the command blocks do is they refill or empty things that could get filled if you played forever, which is not a concern, so I did not add them. But like figuring out how the system works, adding it my own way, knowing how to do this redstone signal to get the berries from down there, get it all working. It's been really satisfying. It's been really nice. Yeah. I think that's all the redstone I've done. Oh, there's one more thing that I wanted to show you, which is I figured out how the some cards are called ethereal and they go away once you play them, and I wanted to know how that worked. And it's pretty simple. These are the droppers that return your card back to this water stream, which brings it back to your deck. Some of them just simply don't have droppers and have these barrels instead. And so when your card flows through the system, it ends up in here, and then you don't get it. And if you were to replace this with a dropper, bam, it's not ethereal anymore. So if I wanted tactical approach to but just be a card you could have all the time, I could just replace this with a dropper, and that would work. And I think that's really cool. I'm hyped. This has been really fun. If you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. I have had a ton of fun doing all this redstone and, you know, figuring all this stuff out for the very first time. So, hope you enjoyed, and have a great week. See ya.